Presented by RomulusIT.com, offering remote support for common computer problems. Landry.Audio, listen, like, and subscribe. Today, I'm speaking with UFC veteran and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion Anthony Perosh. Ant had started his Jiu-Jitsu here in Australia before relocating to Dallas, Texas to train directly under Carlos Machado. He's had 2 stints in the UFC and continues to train and coach in both Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and MMA. He's been my primary instructor since I moved to Australia in 2004, including training and cornering me for my very, very brief pro career that I had. He's in Sydney. I'm in the great city of Newcastle, Australia. How are you today, Ant?
How you doing, Jesse?
Yeah, good, mate. As I was saying, normally when I get to speak to people, I've got a ton of material because I've never had the chance to speak to them, but I speak to you on quite a regular basis, so it's a slightly different interview, I guess, in that regard. So for people that don't know who you are, easiest place to start, tell us kind of a little bit about yourself and how you ended up getting into martial arts and then to the UFC.
Last year, celebrated a big milestone, 25 years in martial arts and 20 years of coaching. Last year, 2020, during the COVID year, started around a lot around my time, like a UFC 1 started November 1993, and I pretty much took up martial arts about a year later, even less, about 10 months later. Started just a traditional karate style. Was interested in UFC, didn't really, wasn't my cup of tea. And then found BJJ and Thai kickboxing, and kind of the rest is history. But that was back in 96, 97 that I started.
How did that come across? Because I remember, so we're talking back around that time period. Did they release like the original UFCs on VHS out here, like Blockbuster and Video Easy, and that? Is that how you first found out about it? And then, I remember how. Yeah.
The very first, I remember, it was December 1995. So right. It was about 2 years after the first UFC. Carlos Gracie Jr. came out and did a seminar, a BJJ seminar. He brought out a couple of his black belt champions. And they had a VHS tape for sale. It was called Gracie in Action.
Yes.
And it was an 8-man tournament that Renzo Gracie won. So that video is actually the very first, I think it was called, I can't remember, Cage Fighting something. Cage Fighting Championships, I think it was. Pretty simple like that. So I bought that VHS tape, December 95. So I loved his BJJ seminar, Carlos Jr.
Okay.
I thought I need to learn more of this, and found a local school. The highest rank in Sydney at that time was a blue belt. Actually, in the whole of New South Wales, the highest rank is a blue belt. And I started training with him in January 96.
How do you, when I try to talk to people about this who don't really follow martial arts, and I don't even get into the conversation of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I just go, yeah, it's karate. I do karate. How do you explain that to people that really don't know much about it, and I guess how much of an offshoot or subset BJJ is?
Thankfully, a lot of people actually know what it's about now. Usually, the first thing I might say is, if they're a complete newbie and don't really know what's going on, I might just say it's like UFC cage fighting. But I don't usually do that. I'll just say it's a grappling art. We wrestle. So to put it simply, striking's on your feet, grappling's on the ground. I do what's on the ground.
Cool.
Funny, just while I remember, funny story. Like, I was BJJ Australian BJJ champion, 10 years in a row before I started MMA, and won 2 bronze medals at the Worlds. So with all that behind me, my dad still told all my friends and family that I was the Australian karate champion.
Perfect. Fair enough. At which point?
He's 85 years old now, and but still,
yeah.
Even he couldn't get the grappling He does now. He knows what jiu-jitsu is now, but.
Oh, you would hope so. You would hope so. So what's going on around that scene for, if we talk about that sort of era, I guess in Australia, who would there have been? There would have been kind of John Will and Anthony Lange, I guess, who would have been the only kind of senior belts around that period in time.
Like there were two main head instructors. I guess John Will was part of the Machado group.
Yeah.
He was the Machado team. And I think he was a purple or brown belt at the time. And he was based in Victoria.
Yeah.
And the other one, the head of the Gracie team, was Peter DeBean. So they were the two main and only teams in Australia back in 95, 96 when I started.
And so did you end up?
Did you end up team and a Gracie team?
Yeah.
And and I remember I'm pretty sure I remember meeting both. Like in Sydney, there was two blue belts, one for the Gracie team, one for the Machado team, and they were both at that BJJ seminar I was talking about that Carlos Gracie ran.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a chat with both of those coaches, and I ended up picking Anthony Lange from Machado from there.
How long? Because I guess for people that don't know the geography of Sydney, you would have been down in the inner west, driving up to the North Shore to train with him. How regularly did you do that before you ended up, flying out to Dallas?
I did it twice a week. I trained twice a week because actually I was still doing Kempo, karate, and Thai kickboxing at another place at my original gym.
Okay.
Original team. I was doing Kempo, karate, and Thai kickboxing 2 days a week. And then at the BJJ gym, I was doing that twice a week in Manly. And in peak hour traffic from inner west to Manly, it was 90 minutes, hour and a half. So if I was to make a 7 o'clock class, I would have to leave at 5:30. There's coming home was a 45-minute drive. That's like no traffic.
There's a lot of old school stories where you hear about, guys making 3-hour journeys to go train with gyms. We're luckily enough, we don't have to really do that, I guess, anymore. But going back to your time period, when did you decide that, I guess ultimately that you wanted to make a career out of it, which I assume would have been the preface to deciding to relocate to Texas?
I didn't even think about having a career of coaching. I just want to be a competitor.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to learn from the source. And I was at uni doing occupational therapy, and at that time, it was my job was in high demand in the US, along with physios. So it was actually quite easy to get a work visa.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to. That's the reason I went. I just really wanted to learn from the source and get better and be the best. I wanted to be a world champion in BJJ, and I knew if I wanted to do that, I had to go to the source and do it. And the opportunity arose where I got to travel as well. So it was like a win-win.
And back then, I think you had mentioned some of the guys. You were training with Travis Luter, and I think he's now looking after Kevin Holland, or a few of the other old school guys that you would have been with around that time.
Yeah. He was my main, one of my main training partners. I had a lot of good training partners and friends. I still keep in contact with them today. Probably at least 4 or 5 of them that I keep in contact with. I actually caught up with them in the last couple of World Masters Championships in Vegas. I caught up with the guys too there as well, because they actually still active and competing. So they also compete at the Masters. But yeah, Travis Luter was one of my main training partners.
Yeah. Okay. Do you know who Carlos is mostly looking after? I think is Wonder Boy trains out there now. Do you know much about the roster guys that they're helping in the UFC these days?
No, I haven't. He's still with him, of course. But I'm not sure whether Carlos goes there or Wonder Boy comes to him or how it works in the last fight or two.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. So how much time do you spend out there? And when you go through competition in BJJ, was, you mentioned that you watched the early UFC. Was the goal always to get into mixed fighting? Because from what I know of you, you spent a lot of time dedicated purely to BJJ before I kind of saw you make that leap.
To tell the truth, I didn't even think about MMA until I got my BJJ black belt. So I was doing striking and wrestling to complement my BJJ, but I received my black belt in middle of 2003, and I made a conscious decision then that I wanted to pursue MMA rather than a black belt competition career. So I stopped competing in BJJ and started competing in MMA instead.
It's an interesting point that you make, and I guess it's more predominant now than it would have been then, where guys can now make careers out of purely BJJ. Do you want to just tell me, I guess, about your mindset of the difference between opting to go into combat as opposed to staying as a pure grappler?
I think I just wanted another test. Like being a competitor, you always want to test your skills and see if what you do works. And I was happy with BJJ, and UFC was growing at that time, so it seemed like a logical choice for me at the time. And then just decided to do it.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we would have been around sort of at the same period with CFC. Ultimately, how did the call come up? Was it sort of the, for people that are unfamiliar with you were gym sharing and splitting with Elvis Sinisic at that time? Was that sort of relationship what helped you get into there? Because, back then there weren't a lot of Australian athletes in the organization.
Yeah. My first stint, I was just too, not ready at all. Like I wasn't ready technically, physically, mentally. Just not patient enough. And obviously I cornered Elvis a couple of times in his matches. I met the matchmakers, and they knew I was fighting and was wanting to get into the UFC. I was starting to fight on a local show, and then opportunity came up. The matchmaker said, "Look, we've got a spot. Do you want to take it?" I mean, of course, I'll take it. And my first fight was against Jeff Monson, and then after he beat me, he went on to fight for the heavyweight belt, which he didn't win.
That was the Sylvia fight, wasn't it, where he had lost like 2 feet of reach?
Yeah. But I wasn't ready back then, so I went just back to the drawing board, went back to the local scene, and did it pretty much the hard way, the usual way, where you fight on a local show, you win, you move up the rankings, and when you're number 1 or number 2 in Australia, you keep sending the matchmaker, who was Joe Silver at the time, keep sending him an email saying, "Hey Joe, I won again. Hey Joe, I won again. Give me a shot. Hey Joe, I won again. Give me a shot." And eventually he'll say, "Hey, we've got a spot. You want to take it?"
Now, if I'm not mistaken, this culminated in a very short turnaround fight where the UFC had come to Australia for the first time at 110, and I'm trying to think if this is correct. And Mirko Cro Cop had a fight that was lined up, and I can't remember who he was scheduled to fight, and they pulled out, and they were left without anyone. And again, I'm this is going back 10 or so years. I believe you were the only one that was willing to put up their hand to effectively get a chance to get back into the organization, and opted to do it on
so that's
like 5 days notice.
2
days notice. Okay.
2 days.
So tell us this. If you're new to the sport, this won't make a lot of sense. But if we're talking sort of prime Cro Cop at the time, it was a pretty big deal to say, like, yeah, I will fight him without any camp or to do anything, because I think you would have been the 3rd or 4th person that they offered it to at the time as well, and you weren't a natural heavyweight either. I think you were already looking to cut to at light heavy.
I was already ready to make light heavyweight because I was training at the time, and I was helping Elvis train for his fight, and also Igor Perosh from Croatia. He was fighting on that card, so I was helping him. So I was already fight fit. And Elvis pulled out of his fight. And I thought I was going to replace him. And Joe Silva came up to me and just looked me up and down. He goes, "What do you weigh?" I go, 100 kilos.
So about 220 is what we're talking about.
About 220, yeah. I go, "Do you want to fight?" I go, "Yes." He goes, "Do you want to fight Cro Cop?" I go, "No." So actually I told him no. And that was it. And then about 2 hours later, I was just sitting in my hotel room, and I was saying, "What the hell did I just do? I just turned down to fight one of the greatest fighters in the world in the UFC on my home soil in front of 20,000 people." I go, "What the hell what did I just do?" So I called him back, and he says, "No, it's gone." I go, "No, come on, give it. I'll do it. I'm sorry." And he goes, "Why?" He goes, I told him exactly those things. I said, "I wasn't thinking like I want to fight for the UFC. I don't care who's in front of me. It's my home crowd. Give it to me." He goes, "Okay." So that's kind of how it happened. And then I asked Joe, I said, "Is this just a one-off deal, or do I get a 4-fight contract?" Because that's what they usually did. They did 4-fight contracts. He said, "I'll get back to you." And then he called me up about an hour later, says, "Yep, I'll give you a 4-fight deal." And then the second fight, so I fought Cro Cop 2 days notice. I lost the match at the end of 2 rounds because I got a cut on my forehead, so the referee stopped it. And then my second match, I went back to light heavyweight. So I had a full camp, and that on UFC, they honor the deal, honor the contract, and I knew that if I lost that second match, that I would have been cut from the UFC. So I made sure that I had a good camp, light heavyweight. They gave me a good opponent like me, who's a first timer. We were both first timers in the UFC. Both had a good winning record as a light heavyweight, and I was able to win that match and stay in the UFC.
Years ago, at the time when Dornan was still at the gym, he said that Cro Cop had originally come to train at SPMA with you guys, and after coming and doing a short session, he decided to opt out and leave. He wasn't happy with the facilities, and it might have created a bit of an awkward situation initially. Do you recall what happened with him at the gym at that time?
Oh, no. He obviously Cro Cop's a big name, and at that time, my first academy was just you've seen it. It was just it was a big space. We had a boxing ring and a half cage and bags and mat space, but we only had one toilet, no showers, nothing else. He was expecting what I have now.
Yeah, right.
He was expecting a big 1,000 square meter place with showers and change rooms and gym and cafe, and he was expecting that. So, but anyway, he still came and trained. I think 2 or 3 times that week.
Is he as stoic and stone faced as he comes across in public?
Yeah. Well, if you don't know him, yeah, like that's how he turns up. But once once you know him a little bit, he's approachable.
Yeah,
you can have a chat with him.
So as you get more recognized and you stack up a few wins in the UFC, was that one of the more confronting opponents that you've had to face? When you sort of talk about getting all that that fear and there's a long lead up to the fight where you're thinking about that constantly before you kind of get that adrenaline dump when you go in. Kind of coming in on your second stint to face him, did it kind of feel like matches beyond that were just a little bit easier to deal with mentally?
You mean doing on short notice? You mean?
Yeah.
Dealing with mentally on short. Yeah, because I had absolutely nothing to lose. I was in the wrong division. I was fighting heavyweight, not light heavyweight. It was 2 days notice. At the same time, I still wanted to put on a good show and do my best. but it's still, the nerves are still there. It's still there. Doesn't matter if you have 2 days notice or 2 months notice. You know, you still really the fighters get nervous because they just want to make sure that they perform. You know, they don't want to have a bad match. That's really why fighters get nervous. They just want to lay it all out there on the line, leave their whole heart and soul and blood, sweat, and tears in the cage. You know, that's really why fighters get nervous, because they just want to do their best every time. Not that they're scared; they just want to do their best.
What do you think you started doing differently? Because you had mentioned it's changed a little bit. Perhaps it's still the same situation with guys a little bit lower down the card, but you know, 2 losses and you're cut from the UFC. So what changes did you need to make that you felt began to bolster and improve your performances overall?
For the second match, I just made sure I ticked all the boxes. So brought in a boxing coach, Steve Rudick, who was with me the whole 9 of my light heavyweight matches, and started strength and conditioning. Brought in a nutritionist, made sure I got the right recovery as well, and just had a really good program, and just make sure I had really, you know, good support from training partners and family and friends as well. Just really getting in the whole picture, make sure all boxes are ticked.
And then ultimately, you got the invitation to go back over to America for a number of stints to train with Jackson Winklejohn. It's always interesting what you said to me, because you had explained that Greg Jackson pretty much came up to you after one of your fights and just expressed an open door policy of saying, why don't you just come and train with us, which is it feels a little bit unique, I suppose, in its approach.
Actually, it wasn't Greg Jackson at the time. It was actually in I went to 2009. 2009, I went to Jackson's for the first time in 2009. Okay. And I met both Greg Jackson and Mike Winklejohn. And in 2010, Mike Winklejohn from Jackson Wing, he was in Sydney at the UFC show. He was cornering one of his fighters, and he came up. We actually had a chat and said, and he was obviously surprised like I was, because I was, you know, fighting on 2 days notice. But then, you know, he invited me back to train whenever I had a fight. And when I was there, obviously Greg Jackson and Michael John, both very welcoming and supporting, good coaches.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. When it comes to, well, I guess, is there anything before I kind of move on to that, because a lot of the conversation we'll probably have will revolve a little bit more around BJJ and the leg lock game, I suppose, today. Any other sort of key memories that you remember the UFC, or I guess particular moments in time that now you have the opportunity to speak about?
My favorite moments?
Yeah.
Look, the first one's always my first win, you know, like the first UFC win. And getting it in front of my home crowd as well just made it extra special, sweet. But it's like a little how can you say it? For me, it's like I made it. You know, I made it. I didn't want to just make it into the UFC. I wanted to win in the UFC, and getting that first win was really special. And then the second win was just as special as the first one, because I didn't want to be just a one trick pony and just win one. I want to have, you know, two in a row or 3 in a row, and I was able to get 3 in a row. And then obviously the quick knockout that I had against Vinny, that was also a great highlight. And my last win was, I felt I did my absolute best. I was like, I wish I fought like that every time. You know, even during all my losses, I wish I fought like I did, that like performance-wise, that every time. So that my last win was a big highlight too.
You ended up you know, getting into the UFC a little bit later in age than a lot of younger people do. And I remember after you fought John Villante, you come back and you kind of said, I knew I was done. You said the build up and everything into the fight, I guess you felt a little bit sluggish. You didn't really have the desire. I guess from a psychological point, do you just want to talk about sort of, I guess, hitting that wall and understanding when it's time to kind of say, look, I'm not at my best, and it might be time to move on?
Yeah, I think I was 42 at the time.
Mm.
I had my first win at 38 in the UFC, and then the last one was 41 or 42, and my last fight was at, I think, 42 or 43. But yeah, it's something you can't explain. It's just almost like a flick of the switch. It was that quick. It was that quick, and I think the reason being is the reason I chose to retire was I couldn't handle the train. The training was becoming difficult.
Mm.
Like I couldn't mentally and physically. Actually, mentally was okay. I just couldn't physically keep up as best as I could, like I did before.
Mm. Okay.
I felt when I was 38, 39, 40, even 41, it was okay. But for some reason, as soon as I hit 42, 43, it just something slowed down a little bit. And physically, I wasn't doing my best, wasn't recovering the best. I thought, nah, I think it's time to go.
Okay, fair enough. When you decided to give a pro fighting, was the intention always to continue to compete in BJJ and then immediately move into to coaching, because you've done both quite successfully post fight career?
I started coaching when I got back from Dallas, Texas in 2000. I was a purple belt, and I knew at that time that I wanted to have a career in martial arts and coaching and running an academy. So that started long ago. But as soon as I retired MMA, I wasn't doing BJJ either. So it was just a good time just to completely, put 100% in my students every day, as opposed to, having 6-8 weeks off to prepare for a competition, a match where, you have to focus on yourself. But as soon as I retired, I was able to every day, every week, every event, I was able to support my students, whether they want to compete or just get better or just grade to the next level, or just learn some new skills and get fit.
We'll talk about a little bit more about BJ, the modern game of BJJ, which I tend to have a lot of difficulty when I see, Danaher and Gordon Ryan's and that sort of thing, inverting all the time and doing all that jazz. There were some interesting facts that when we talked about it, because you are, as people may or may not know, you're in your gym now, you're running an academy. When we've had the chance to talk about business, there's some really interesting facts and figures around it as well as a gym owner. I'd be interested, firstly, to get your perspective as a business owner in martial arts, because I remember some of the facts that you're telling me. It's like you always need to market. The average lifespan for a student can oftentimes be less than 12 months. So you've always got to have new guys coming in. What are some of the, the key facts and figures that you've found around trying to promote Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and grow that as a business?
I guess 18 months is a good rule of thumb. Like is a good average stint of how average life of a student is 18 months. So some stay a lot longer. Obviously, like yourself and myself, we stay a lot longer, but some stay a lot shorter. Maybe some people just go in for a casual visit or stay a month or 2 or 3. But average is about 18 months. So we kind of the whole business plan is revolving around, okay, every time I sign up a student, I can expect 18 months of income from that student, from memberships and buying gear and equipment, and from the cafe and things like that. So that's I guess that's number one. And then number two is you have to constantly, if I don't, with the size of my gym at the moment, if I don't sign up 30 new students every month, I'm in the black. I'm in the red. Yeah, right. I'm in the red if I don't sign up, because as soon as I sign up 30, I'll lose 30 every month. So every month I'm kind of like, +1 or +2 or +5, sometimes a bit higher, because like I said, the average stay of a student is 18 months. So every month you're going to have those people who cancel. They cancel. They've done their 12 months. They've done their 18 months. Martial arts is just a hobby for them. You know, maybe they'll say, oh, I don't want to do martial arts anymore. I'll go play soccer or learn to play the guitar or do something else, you know. So I got to make sure that I keep marketing. Doesn't matter what I've won in before in the past. It doesn't mean absolutely nothing. You have got to make sure you keep your website fresh and your social media fresh and your Google ads and whatever ads you're doing. And you've got to keep getting those new people every month for a business to survive. That'd be my number one tip for any business,
And
especially
have you looked sort of further at the track? So, you know, within 18 months, you know, most people wouldn't be getting their blue belt. Do you have sort of a rate of attrition as well from blue to purple, purple to brown, brown to black?
No, I haven't ever done those stats. But you can see yourself, like at the moment, actually I have a lot more. Once they reach black, they actually stay. Most of them stay. But you know, I've had students drop off at brown belt, like after 8-10 years of training. They said, "Up, done." And they want it, and they don't train anymore. They don't train with me. They don't train with anyone else. They decide to stop. So why people stop? It's a difficult reason. Obviously, life gets in the way sometimes, or they find something new, or they're just not interested anymore.
I remember years ago as well when you guys were still in the Inner West. It was interesting to me because I think you were speaking specifically.
I'm still in the Inner West.
Sorry, Concord 5 doc. When I'm talking about Concord days, I suppose. It was interesting to me because you had mentioned, I think it was with the kids class. So there were two parts to this. First of all, you said for a lot of gyms, having a healthy and robust kids class is what allows them to maintain their business plan. But then I think the other thing that you had mentioned to me is that parents don't care about what martial art it is. They just want to put their kids into a program to give them some physical activity with a little bit of discipline. Is that still the case, or did I have? Because I remember you telling me this a decade ago.
You missed. I didn't say that at this because I specialize in adults.
Okay.
So the kids actually don't pay my bills, so to speak. It's the adults. I have, I'm fortunate enough to have about 600 students at the moment. 500 of them are adults. I only have 100 kids.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So that's, I guess but other academies like the traditional, say, karate or taekwondo, they're the other way around. They have 500 kids and 100 adults. So whatever your base is, that's, you just got to make sure you keep getting those new ones in. But for my kids, look, I teach them the skills, and they get fit, and they, from there they get their confidence as well. I do have a lot more students now, kids who don't not just group classes, they do private lessons as well with me because they're really having a problem with bullying at school.
Right. Okay.
Like we could talk a lot on just bullying and my views on bullying as well, but
I'd love to, because from what I hear, there's all these awareness campaigns of schools trying to run it out the door, and then anytime I hear about a kid who's getting picked on who stands up for himself, he is the one that ends up being expelled because it seems as though the kid is just supposed to tolerate this in the structure of a school.
Yeah, because it's like how can you say, like some school, there's one for example, the school has a policy of let the kids work it out. I'm going, what?
Well, that's certainly one way to work it out.
That's one way to work it, but this one way to work it out is it was like a 5-on-1. How's a 10-year-old supposed to handle 5-on-1? Especially when the 5-on-1 is bigger and stronger than them. How's that supposed to happen?
Yeah.
And then the principals goes, oh, they got to handle it, work it out. I go, all right. And then this all happens like in, follow him into the toilets, or they follow him after school in the park, on the way to the bus stop or something. And it happens outside, so no one sees.
Yeah,
so
and we
no
see
one,
this filmed all the time now. It ends up
no
online
one
as
sees
well.
it. But then if the kid who's being bullied, if they try and hit back, then sometimes that's in the public, and they're the ones who get into trouble.
So how do
Anyway,
you deal or adjust? I mean, when you get these kids coming in, or this becomes a problem, how do you try to do that?
we just the main thing is just learn the basics. We're not trying to actually win any fight or competition or anything. Just get in there and just learn the skills. And it's amazing how just learning the skills of how to stand correctly, how to move correctly, your stance, your footwork, your grips, the distance, just deflecting a little bit, just learning how to stand up correctly, learning good base, a little bit of core strength. It's amazing, and not getting pushed around, like just keeping solid, keeping your distance, keeping eye contact, just keeping your chin up in terms of looking confident. No, chin up when the distance, when you have distance, like
chin up out wide, chin down in tight.
Correct. If you're far away, chin up so you look confident.
Yeah.
But obviously, the closer you get, obviously the chin's going to go down. But I'm talking about like, hey, get back. Yeah. It's amazing how just teaching them about good posture, you've seen such good results already. Right. It's still not, every case is different, but it's amazing how just learning the basics and making them look confident. If their stance looks confident and they have good footwork, it's amazing how that relates to how they actually deal with the situation.
Fair enough. All right. Where do we want to move this conversation? Let's talk a little bit about, okay, so have you noticed, I guess where we'll move this conversation is into BJJ. Have you noticed the growth of it? So as someone who's been around through this time, do you think it has finally, I guess, crossed the threshold into mainstream where people understand and know about it through Ultimate Fighting? Or is it still...
Not at all. Not even close.
No. Okay.
No.
Yeah.
Because it's not in the news. It's not in the news. It's not on the radio. It's not in newspapers. It's nowhere mainstream. Nowhere. The only time it's mainstream at the moment is if something bad happens.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah.
Some kid chokes someone else out at school, or
ex-cage fighter robs a bank, ex-cage fighter kills girlfriend.
Or whatever. Exactly. It's something when the bad happens. So it's still.
I've seen a few of those guys come through the gym in my time who ended up making the news.
Sure. And they still. So I don't think it's mainstream at all. It's definitely a lot more popular. Of course, it's a lot more popular.
And so are people seeking out BJJ then when they come to the gym specifically, or are they more just looking for something like healthy fitness?
But they still know about it because they either follow the UFC, or they've seen something on YouTube or something. It's not as prevalent. It's still not as popular as karate, for example.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Like when you think martial arts, if you talk to someone complete newbie and you said what's martial arts, they'll say karate. They still say that.
I still say it. It's Australian ground karate. So when people,
you could have something there, Jesse.
I know. I'll talk to Gene Simmons. Maybe he'll help me trademark it and we'll go sell it off to the rest of the world. So fundamentally, what do you think then when people start out, like on the forums, when I'm on Reddit and stuff like that, there's always the questions that get thrown around of what do I need to learn and what do I need to know? And I know previously when I've talked to you about it, it's one of your pet peeves where you have people come and sign up to the gym and then they start, as a relative beginner, they're saying, why aren't you teaching me berimbolo and all this stuff? Do you think the core curriculum of jiu-jitsu remains the same at the moment in terms of, base positions, or have you had to adopt just to that as well?
That it's completely that's completely dependent on the coach.
Yeah.
It's where it starts from the top in that one. So if the coach instills basics, then every student will learn their basics first. If the student instills that, we can go a bit creative right from the get-go, then that's their choice as well. So it's down to the individual coach, academy, what they do. So we're talking about leg locks before. Maybe there's some academies they start with their basics include a basic leg lock game straight from the get-go. Whereas but if they're doing more leg lock game, then maybe something else will suffer, like even just a closed guard game, top and bottom. Posture top and breaking posture on the bottom won't be as strong. And in my academy, I'm still more of a traditionalist. We still do all the fundamental positions first. Closed guard, half guard, side control, mount, back control. Make sure that you learn those positions first. How to attack, how to defend, how to move from one position to another. And then we can add in, the leg locks and inverting and whatever else is out there, whatever else people like to do.
Do you think you have to give up one for another at some point? And what I mean is, ever since I started training with you, I've always enjoyed the theory of being well-rounded as opposed to being specialist. But it seems like with the way that no-gi jiu-jitsu has gone off into sport jiu-jitsu, you could have either been a takedown specialist, sort of a guard passer above the hips, or now a leg locker. With sport jiu-jitsu, it seems that the wrestling is almost becoming non-existent, to the point that we slap hands, bang, and we're both in open guard fighting. Do you think you can still become fully well-rounded? Because I'm hearing more and more from gyms of traditionalists versus leg lockers, where they go, oh man, he's deadly tying up the legs, but as soon as you pass the hips, they virtually got no game. So do you think
have
it's
nothing? Correct.
Yeah.
So anytime you have to learn both. Again, it comes down to the coach. So if the way I coach is, you have to do I have my set, positions and attack and defense. And then if we want to do leg locks, so first we have to learn what the attacks are, and then you learn your defense. But for every defense, there's always three types of defense. You got your early, middle, and late defense. So obviously with any defense, not just leg locks, early defense is always better, preventing them from getting into that position, from preventing yourself from getting tangled up. How do you prevent yourself from getting into there and put yourself into a position to either pass or sweep? So it comes down to the coach and how they approach it.
And we haven't.
But you can still, like, even though I have a traditional more game, I still specialize in only 2 or 3 moves. There's only 2 or 3 moves I do from the top, and only 2 or 3 moves I do from the bottom. A lot more than other moves. So I still, that's a natural progression. That's what you should be doing. You need to have a good base in every position, but then you are going to specialize in some sort of area.
I've talked about this with my guys. I'm trying to think. I think your syllabus is it 250 moves from white all the way to purple?
240, yes.
240, but then we still have counters and grips.
240, including counters and combinations and grip breaks.
But ultimately, as you said, it's kind of down to really having 10 key moves that you work on, which is a couple of guard passes and.
Correct. Like I actually did a video analysis of my 6 matches at the World Championships from 2018 when I won gold in the absolute. I did, and out of my video analysis, I did 10 techniques. 7 out of the 10 techniques was from my white to blue syllabus.
This is exactly what I said. There's all this stuff, and I go, you really won't see me do anything beyond like blue 2. It still hasn't changed.
This is against black belts. 2 of them was from purple to brown, and sorry, blue to purple, and one technique. I used one technique from the purple to brown silk in my 6 matches.
And what do you think about IBJJF announcing that they're going to introduce leg locks? I think there's some asterisks around how wide it's going to be, but does
they have introduced it to no gi.
No, so it still won't be part of gi at all.
Not yet, no.
Not yet. Okay.
I'm pretty sure no, but no gi it's legal, and that's a smart move. They should be. You can't be left behind. You have to, if that's what people are wanting, then you have to change. You have to change with them. You know, you can't really be stuck in your ways. It's definitely something I've learned over the last 25 years. I was very traditionalist in everything, like, you know, my martial arts, the way I do business, the way I handle life. But I realized you can't. You have to change. You have to be not completely change, but you have to, you know, take a little bit from here, take a bit from there, maybe scrap something from here, and, you know. But my overall core is still the same, but you do have to adapt.
So will this adjust? Like, does that affect reaping, or what do you think the issue is? That they don't like the fact of leg locking in a gi because of the friction it causes, or do you think there's any other fundamental differences of why you can't do it? You know, with the jacket.
Maybe they still choose. Maybe they still want to have more of a traditional game.
Okay.
You know, if you look at, for example, if you take another sport, judo, for example, you can't do double leg and single leg takedowns anymore in judo.
Yes. I heard it's because wrestlers just started throwing on gis and dominating the sport there for a period of time.
Yeah, because they wanted because it's a traditional Japanese sport, and they didn't want it. They wanted to remain a little bit more pure. So that's their choice. That was judo's choice. But I think they've made the right move in terms of no gi to allow reaping and leg locks for sure. But for gi, you know, it's up to the people in charge. And if I had an opinion, yeah, I would love it for it to be legal as well, because again, like, you know, we've talked about it before, it just makes you more of a complete fighter. So you've got to make sure that you can handle someone choking you, someone arm barring you, and also someone leg locking you. You want to make sure that you're a complete fighter and that you can handle all that, and then you can implement your game. So I hope that it does come to the gi game.
Moving forward, do you think guys will actually be able to introduce this as they move into MMA? And so you know, traditionally we've had like Rusamora Palhares, who had, you know, mixed success in the UFC based on that. Another guy that comes to mind is Marcin Held, who I think moved through Bellator before UFC, and I think he's now with PFL, who didn't do that well. Ryan Hall's, you know, he's got the one over BJ Penn, but there still seems to be a lot of difficulty in implementing leg locking in MMA.
Yeah, I don't think it's not going to happen anytime soon, because one, you get punched in the face, and then secondly, you have the cage as well. So you could, like, for example, start rolling to get out of the leg lock, and then you find the cage, and then you can, like, use the cage to come
posture
up. You just have to actually stay there and handle, and just stay there stuck in that heel, whatever, and then just start to lay down punches, and pretty much they're going to be knocked out pretty soon. So I think leg locks is it's not going to be there yet anytime soon in MMA. The only time it will be there if the guy's completely, like, you've already got him rocked and tied. It's just a really good setup or tie, but I don't think it's not going to be like a game plan. It's going to be like a little extra. I don't think someone's going to go in. Oh, I'm going to leg lock you. I don't think that's going to happen.
Fair enough.
Anytime soon, anyway.
In a broader sense, then, you know, being both through the UFC, BJJ, and all the places that you've trained rather, it's always interesting to hear about some of the stories or guys that you really pick something up from. You know, we always hear You know, there's UFC rosters like 600 guys. Not all of them can be champions, but we consistently hear about guys like Damian Maia who, you know, in service to what they do, are just on an exceptionally higher level. You know, you've had the chance to train with guys like John Jones and a number of other guys. Are there certain people that you've that you've just kind of gone, wow?
Look, I in my own coaching, I often, you know, I don't have an ego. You know, my coach is Carlos Machado, and you know, he's taught me the bulk of what I know, but I also pick up things from you know, from other people, and I always credit us. Oh, look, we're going to learn this technique today, and I learned this one the last time I was here at Jackson's, and you know, Greg Jackson or Michael John or John Jones taught the move. So it's hard to, now that you know,
Put you on the spot effectively.
on the spot, it's I can't just pick someone who's, yeah, but I do that all the time, almost weekly, at least once a week. I would say, you know, tell a little story of where this move has come from, or you know, why I'm teaching it, and how it fits into my game and your game and that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm very, like I said, I'm much more flexible than what I used to be.
I know,
and I need to be, and I need to be that to progress, because I'm not happy. Even though I've had a lot of success in BJJ, I still want to keep getting better. You know, I don't want to.
That's a really good question. How do you think, you know, because I'll be 40 at the end of this year, and is I think I mentioned to you, I've recently gone through a leg break, and now that I've been back on the mats for a couple months, I'm finding it really, really hard to get back to. It feels sluggish this time around. It feels like it's a real slog. How, you know, you say better. As you get older and physically you can do less, you know, what we talk about, rolling lighter, possibly playing guard, you know, being a little bit safer, maybe working on mobility as opposed to strength. But beyond those sort of core concepts, how do you try to get better while dealing with, you know, father time?
Thankfully, again, you have to make it. It's number one. It's always a choice. If you don't actually choose, have that mindset to actually be open and learn, then you're not going to learn anything. So number one, you have to have a good mindset. So again, I have students now who can tap me out like they're half my age, and they're brown and black belts, and it's great. I mean, it's good and it's bad. It's good that they can tap me out sometimes, but it makes me keep learning. I want to make sure, I say, hey, what the hell did you just do? Why did that happen? And then we work from there. So number one, I think you have to have a mindset that you actually want to learn. So if you have that, then actually learning is easy. You can learn from your students. You can learn from your coach, of course. You can learn from YouTube or other videos or other online videos. You know, we're in 2021 now. We have everything's online, like the full library of all the top fighters. You can just pick a fight. Say, oh, I like this guy's game. He's got some videos on it. I'll watch his videos. But it all comes from, you have to want to learn first. So as long as you have that mindset, Jesse, you'll keep getting better.
Do you think a black belt means as much anymore? They're not as hard to come by anymore. You know, I can't imagine. How many would you have handed out now? 30, 40?
Sorry?
You've handed out what, probably 30 or 40 by now? Somewhere around that? 35.
35.
35. So,
but why would you say that? But why would you say? Because all 35 have been with me anywhere from 8 to 18 years before I presented with a black belt. They're all long time. Like, I have 600 current students. So, you know, like I said, you know, if you tally up every single student I've had over the last 25 years, it's in the thousands. So 1% of that, maybe even less than 1%, have achieved black belt. So I don't think it's easy at all to get a black belt. I don't think it just may seem because, you know, we're very fortunate. You know, I've handed out 35, but I've handed out 35 since 2006 or 7 was the first one I handed out.
Right.
So that's 35 over the last 15 years. It's about, say, 2 a year of students who've been with me for, you know, a long time.
All right. I'm conscious of time because I think you've got to run a private soon, so we'll kind of start to wrap this up. One of the other things that I want to talk through, because you've had staph twice now. Is it twice that you've had it?
I've had staph badly 3 times.
Three times now.
I was actually hospitalized 3 times for it.
So I just want to cover this before, because
I didn't have. It's not just ring. It wasn't just ringworm, or it was actually like bad staph.
And so even though, and I'm not even sure what I've gotten, but you know, on the mats frequently you'll pick up those kind of those red dots that get that sort of little pus spot on them, and they'll take like a couple weeks to sort themselves out.
That's ringworm. That's
it's a type of it, because it's not the hardcore ringworm.
Yeah. But there's no staph is where you have like an open wound. It could be a cut. It could be a.
Let's just talk about how that happens first. So again, it comes off the mats. Do you? Because it seems to.
It doesn't.
About
it doesn't come off, no, it doesn't. No.
Person to person.
It's all person to person. It doesn't come off stinky geese. It doesn't come off stinky uniforms. It doesn't come off even dirty students who, you know, maybe they've come from work. And
so it doesn't survive in your gi or belt. That's not the issue. It's
all the mats. All the mats.
Skin to skin contact.
It's all contact, skin to skin. Skin to skin. And that's ringworm, any staph. Nothing is like dirty geese. That's a whole different issue in itself. You know, that's bad, just really bad hygiene, and you know, but you're not gonna like catch anything.
So is that some people, I guess, just like COVID, are symptomless when they carry it, and then some people that are just more prone to it end up.
Well, technically, everyone carries staph in their body. Everyone has it. So what happens is, when you get stressed out, how does the body handle stress?
Right.
Unfortunately, because it was like the way the doctors explained it. It says because I trained so hard, that's why a lot of fighters get it. They get a lot of because.
So low immunity as you're recovering from hard training sessions and that sort of thing.
It's just their way of the body saying, "Hey, you're going too hard. You're going too fast. You need to slow down. I can't keep up with repairing everything here. You've got to slow down." And it just so happens you had an open wound and you came in contact with someone who was more of a carrier, and after like the second time, I asked the doctor, "How do I stop this? How do you stop it? How do you prevent it?" He says, "You can't. Because you can be the most cleanest person. You can have like showers twice a day, clean, you know, wash your gi twice a day, mop the mats twice a day, and you still get it."
So it's really like it's below even it's minuscule, far beyond 1%, because it's being transferred all day, all the time. But I guess effectively at some point, if your immunity is low, that's when you become potentially susceptible to it.
Correct.
Okay, and then when it's, from what I've heard, it's only about a 24-hour period before it becomes serious. Is that sort of the I guess?
It varies on how bad it is. That's all.
And so what are your stories? Because I remember reading about guys like Kevin Randleman, and they were saying like he had a hand-sized print in his ribs that was open, like he was pretty close to death. It's a very serious thing.
The second time I was almost close to death, so to speak, where I woke up middle of the night. I was living by myself at the time in an apartment, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and I woke up it was like I woke up in a swimming pool.
Right. Okay.
It was an infection. I had a staph in my knee, and my knee was burning. I looked
very painful as well. Yeah.
It was painful. It was hot, and I literally the hot bed sheets were just soaked top to bottom of sweat. I was sweating. I've never sweated so much in my life. And I called the ambulance, picked me up, and they said, "Man, you're lucky." And they operated me. As soon as I got to the hospital, I was in surgery.
How do they try to deal with it? Because I've heard, staph can be deadly, and you're effectively on really high antibiotics through the whole process. How do they try to manage it, and why is it always compared to a lot of other diseases? All the stories I hear is it's always like it could go either way, one way or the other, on how ill you really get.
Oh, look, I mean, Jess, I'm not a doctor. It might be a better question for a doctor, but again, everyone is different. Everyone staph is not just one way to deal with it. Sorry, there's not one. There might be just one cure. Like we both might get it. They both give us the same antibiotics, but it might work for you. It might not work for me. So they might have to give me a high dose. Then it might still not work for me. It might give me a high dose, and then I might have to stay longer. I might have to have surgery. I might have to get it all cut out. So it's really it varies from person to person.
Okay, fair enough. Last couple of minutes before we finish off, one of the things that we've always had the opportunity to chat about or kind of banter on about outside of martial arts is a mutual love of heavy metal. A couple years ago, I regret not taking you up on the offer now, because I was already up in Newcastle, was going to see Tool, which ultimately led to you in a very, very cool, fortunate situation, is getting to sit around a roll with Maynard James Keenan in a private session in your gym, who are both Machado boys. How did that, I guess, come to be?
It came from actually his bodyguard. So his bodyguard, his name was Todd Fox, and I met him first in Dallas, Texas. So he was a friend of Carlos, and I met him there, and then that kind of friendship continued. Then every time Todd came to Sydney, he was a bodyguard of many people. So he was like bodyguard of Maynard from Tool. He was a bodyguard of the head security of Motley Crue. He was a head security of what's the Pink Floyd guy's name? Waters.
Roger Waters.
Roger Waters, yeah, Roger Waters. And so he's quite well known in the bodyguard. And every time he comes over, he goes, "Hey, can we catch up for a training session?" And so every time he'd come to Sydney, we'd catch up for a training session. And he goes, "Oh, I'm here with Motley Crue. I'm here with Tool. And do you want some tickets?" I went, "Sure, for sure." And then just so happens that Maynard is also a BJJ purple belt, and so Todd's actually trained with Maynard. Like every time they have a spare session, they do some training, and Maynard likes to do some training every time he goes around the world, wherever he's in. He likes to go to this academy and that academy. And when he came to Sydney, he came to my academy, and I was fortunate enough to do a couple of private lessons with him and do some training with him as well.
Cool. I think I've asked you previously, kind of as you get a little bit older, you get stuck in the time period. Have you been finding or listening to anything new lately?
No, I haven't listened to anything new for a while.
Yeah.
I haven't even listened to anything for a while. Like, I just need to get back into it. But no, I'm very, in terms of music, I'm very, very, very old school. So I can definitely just keep listening to the old stuff for the rest of my life. But I still would love to find some new hard rock or heavy metal to get back into.
I'm telling you, for a couple of years now, I've been telling you to just try out Sabaton. I really think that you'd enjoy them, but every time I ask you,
actually, there's another student who actually mentioned that same band. So actually came in here yesterday wearing that Sabotage T-shirt. And he goes, "Can you put some Pantera on? Because my UE boom is broken, so I'm going to get a new one today, and we'll make sure we bust out some Pantera and also some Sabotage as well."
All right, only the later half. Far Beyond Driven, Great Southern Trendkill, Reinventing the Steel. That's where we're at with that band.
Okay.
And the last two tracks from Live 101 Proof. I did a big chat with if you get a chance to listen to it, I spoke to a couple of years ago. I spoke with Bobby Tongs, the guy who used to make the Pantera home videos, and we did like a full all the way through interview about their entire career, how they split off with Damage Plan, trying to regroup, and Phil's role and all of that. It was a very cool chat.
Nice, that would have been cool.
All right. Well, look, I know you've got other stuff to do, and I'm going to see you next Friday anyway. So thank you very much for your time.
Sounds good. My
All right.
pleasure.
Cheers. See you soon. Bye. This episode is brought to you by Romulus IT, offering fast, affordable remote support for common computer problems, including troubleshooting, health checks, virus removal, and software support. Visit RomulusIT.com to get your computer back on track.